Right now, somewhere in your kitchen, a machine is dripping hot water through ground-up seeds. And you are waiting on it like your whole day depends on it. Because it kind of does. You didn't choose this. Your grandparents didn't invent it either. Humans have been chasing this exact feeling. The jolt, the fog lifting, the sense of finally becoming a person again. For so long that it's older than most of the countries on a map. Older than the printing press. Older than half the religions you could name. The question is, when did we first figure out that a bitter little bean could fix a broken morning? Let's go back to the actual beginning. Not a lab. Not a kitchen. A goat. The story, at least the one that gets passed around, starts in the highlands of Ethiopia, with a goat herder named Kaldi. Legend says his goats ate some bright red berries off a certain shrub, and instead of napping like goats do, they started prancing around like they'd had 6 espressos. Kaldi tried the berries himself. Suddenly he understood the goats. Now, historians can't confirm Kaldi was real. It's probably folklore stitched onto something that actually happened over generations. But the plant part checks out. Coffee's wild ancestor really did grow in that region, and people there really did figure out those berries did something to the brain. Here's the thing though, for a long time, nobody was drinking it. Early on, people in the Horn of Africa weren't brewing coffee like we do. Some accounts describe chewing the raw berries, or mixing crushed coffee cherries with animal fat to make a kind of energy paste for long journeys. Basically the world's first protein bar, if protein bars gave you the jitters. Actual brewed coffee, the drink you'd recognize, shows up later, across the water in Yemen. By around the 1400s, Sufi monks in Yemeni monasteries were brewing coffee to stay alert through long nights of prayer. That's not a guess. Historians point to Sufi religious communities as the first documented users of coffee as a beverage, specifically for staying awake. Think about that. The very first cup of coffee wasn't about productivity meetings or Monday mornings. It was about staying spiritually alert at 3 a.m. From Yemen, coffee didn't stay quiet for long. It hit Mecca, then Cairo, then Damascus, then Istanbul. And it spread fast, because it did something almost no other drink at the time could do. It made large groups of people alert, social, and awake, together, in public. That led to coffee houses. And coffee houses changed everything. In the Ottoman Empire, coffee houses became hubs for conversation, music, chess, gossip, political debate. Basically the original social network, except the Wi-Fi was a guy telling you what happened at the market. Some rulers actually got nervous about this. There were periods where coffee and coffee houses got banned in parts of the Ottoman Empire and beyond, because officials worried people were gathering and talking about them. Let that land for a second. Coffee got banned. Not because it was dangerous to your body, because it was dangerous to power. A drink that made people awake enough to think and social enough to talk was treated like a threat. Here's what makes this so important. Coffee wasn't just a habit. It was one of the first mass-market tools for staying conscious on purpose. Before coffee, human alertness ran on sunlight and adrenaline. Coffee let you override that. It let you decide when to be sharp. That idea eventually crossed into Europe in the 1600s, through trade routes and port cities like Venice. And Europe did what Europe does. It got suspicious first, then obsessed. Some religious leaders in Europe reportedly worried coffee was some kind of Muslim plot, a bitter invention of Satan, as it got dramatically described at the time. The story goes that Pope Clement VIII was asked to ban it, tried it himself first, and liked it so much he essentially gave it a blessing instead. True or exaggerated, the pattern is the same one we keep seeing. Fear it, taste it, get hooked. By the late 1600s and 1700s, coffee houses were all over London, Paris, and Vienna. And in London specifically, these places got nicknamed penny universities, because for the price of a cup, you could sit for hours and listen in on doctors, merchants, writers, and scientists arguing about ideas. Some historians link early insurance markets and even parts of the stock exchange to deals literally hashed out over coffee in these rooms. So next time your coffee shop feels like a place people go to work, you're actually reenacting a 300-year-old habit almost exactly on schedule. But here's the problem. Once Europe wanted coffee, Europe wanted a lot of it. And that demand triggered one of the darker chapters in this whole story. To meet that appetite, European colonial powers set up massive coffee plantations in the Caribbean, in South America, in parts of Southeast Asia, and those plantations were built and run on the backs of enslaved and forced labor. Brazil in particular became a coffee-growing giant partly through this system. The drink that made people feel free and awake was, for a huge number of people, tied directly to some of the least free conditions imaginable. That's not a footnote. That's a huge chunk of why coffee is cheap and everywhere today. The convenience has a cost baked into the history. By the 1800s and into the 1900s, coffee had gone from monastery ritual to colonial cash crop to full industrial product. Instant coffee got invented. Then vacuum-sealed cans. Then the drip machine humming in kitchens everywhere. Then, eventually, an app that tells a machine to start brewing before your alarm even finishes going off. And through every single one of those steps, the actual reason didn't change one bit. Humans wanted to feel more awake, more alert, more like themselves, faster than sunlight and rest alone could manage. So here's the full picture. Wild berries in Ethiopia that made goats hyper. A protein paste for long trips. A monk's trick for staying awake at prayer. A drink so socially explosive it got banned by governments. A bitter invention of Satan that got a papal blessing instead. Penny universities that basically ran early capitalism. And a global industry built partly on forced labor, feeding a habit almost every adult on Earth now shares. So when you're standing in your kitchen this morning, waiting on that machine like it holds the keys to your personality, you're not being weak and you're not being lazy. You're doing something people have been doing for over 500 years of documented history, and probably longer before anyone wrote it down. Chasing the exact same feelings Sufi monks were chasing in the middle of the night, just with better packaging. Maybe that's the real story of being human. We will always look for a way to choose our own alertness instead of waiting for the world to hand it to us. If this kind of why do we actually do this history is your thing, there's more of it here. Feel free to stick around.